Appreciate everybody being here today. I'll just talk a little bit about the rest of the offseason since we last got together in Arizona. As you guys know, we were able to acquire Allen Robinson last week. Excited to have him. Early on, when Coach and I got together after the season and mapped out a plan of what we wanted 2023 to look like, one of the things we were keen on was acquiring a veteran receiver. And we're excited that we were able to get it all done with Allen. Once the medical was confirmed to be okay, it was easy for us. With respect to the medical, I'll just say that the doctors felt really good about him, and we're going to be really smart, kind of like we were with Larry Ogunjobi last year. We're going to be conservative with the approach. We understand the importance of spring ball, but there's really no games being played until August. So, we did the same thing with Cole Holcomb, too. We're going to try to be really smart about that. With respect to the draft, what can I say? It's exciting that it's almost here. The process has been great. We spent a lot of time getting to know a lot of players, not only on the field but off the field. I go back once the season ended. I started at the Hula Bowl, had the opportunity to interview several players there. Coach and I got to Mobile. We probably interviewed 40 to 50 players formally, and another 20 to 30 players, probably more than that, informally. We went to Indy, had our 45 visits, formal visits, handful of other informal visits there. When you just run into guys there. Hit the pro day circuit for a couple weeks. It was great, really productive. Got to know a lot of players along the way there, and then we got to obviously had our 30 visits here, had 30 formal visits, had several other players that were local that didn't count towards the 30, and over the last few days we've been doing a lot of Zoom calls, trying to be diligent and get to know as many of these guys as possible. And once I leave here, we got a couple more Zoom calls this afternoon. But with that, Coach, I don't know if you want to add anything. The process has been great from my end.
I think that's probably the most significant reflection that I have on the process. It's not about, Omar being new. We've done what we do in terms of our preparation, but I think the significant difference is that makes me feel good as we sit here today is we adjusted during COVID in terms of the gathering of information and the tools we were willing to use to gather information. And now that we're on the other side of COVID, it's like almost being able to couple those techniques with some traditional ones. It's good to get back on the pro day circuit and see these guys in their college environments and the information that you get from that. The interactions that you get firsthand with them in a combine-like setting or in Mobile. It's good to get back to post-COVID normalcy in terms of some of those things, but then you couple that with the techniques that we, were able to develop during COVID in an effort to get information, whether it's doing research regarding medical information on those that you don't get an opportunity to get firsthand interaction with, or the utilization of Zooms as a tool to further get to know someone. It just feels really good in this post-COVID world to use some of those tools along with traditional ones in an effort to have a high floor of readiness. And I just think that's why we feel really comfortable. We didn't get lazy because of COVID. We're back out there. We hit a bunch of pro days. We took every opportunity that was at our disposal to beat the bushes and engage with these guys. And I think that's why we feel comfortable about where we are. There's still some more work ahead of us. There's still continual discussions that need to be had, and that'll be ongoing. But just the work that we've done, the position that we're in right now in terms of the information that we have, and obviously we've been able to do some things in free agency that I really feel like provides a clean slate for us from a draft perspective. We don't have any glaring needs, and so we're able to, look at the board in totality and not be swayed inappropriately in any specific way. And so that's just kind of the framework of some of the things that we've done and why we feel prepared and good. And and we'll stop talking and then open it up to you guys.
Mike, as far as I can tell, you've never had the first pick to start a day. How advantageous is that 32nd pick?
Man, we're excited about it, man. We've been talking about it. I think the thing that we're least familiar with about it is the amount of calls that we will be or could be getting. And that's where we spend our time, is just talking about how do we organize and how do we get prepared for the receiving of the amount of interest that pick could have. And that's a good and exciting possibility for us.
On the other hand, Omar, what about the calls for number 17? Are you getting a lot of, pre-draft action on that?
Yeah, and that's natural that happens, but that is happening. People are calling, inquiring whether we're interested in moving up, moving down. A lot of times it's just fishing for information, but yeah, it's happening.
Omar, I believe I asked Mike this in Phoenix, but how important is it to determine whether a guy's a football lover? I mean, how do you determine that on a Zoom or a call or a face-to-face meeting? And is that can be a deal breaker if you determine he's not?
It's extremely important, and it can be a deal breaker. I'm not going to go into the how we come up with our final evaluation on that, but that is really important. We ask certain questions. It's all part of getting to know the player and understanding if he loves it. There's a lot goes into it, but it can be a deal breaker. Gotta love football.
For both of you guys, throughout history of this organization, anytime there's been a new GM or a new coach, when the pairing is new, they've drafted foundational pieces. They really haven't gone by need at all, and then they drift into need. How's the approach? I know you're saying best athlete because you don't have a real need, but there are some needs, like a third tackle.
Yeah, we're not going to back ourselves in any corner as we sit here today, as you know. But that's what I mean when I said that we felt really good about what we were able to do in free agency. It provides a platform for what you suggest, that we can just look at prospects available to us.
You guys started this talking about acquiring Allen Robinson and just the importance of him. You also added Patrick Peterson earlier in free agency. When you're looking to add a veteran guy like Robinson, how important is the mentorship piece of that when you're looking at him holistically as a player who you want to bring into this organization?
So it's extremely important. Obviously, when you get, especially when you're getting to the draft and you're looking at guys and you're saying, hey, we don't necessarily need this guy to come in and plug and play right away. He can learn from a guy like Pat P or Allen Robinson. We have some really quality veterans on the team. Cam Hayward, lots of those guys. So it's a great situation to be in.
Mike, you utilized Marvin Leal in some different ways over the course of the season. What do you envision for him heading into 2023? His role, his frame, and how might that impact what you look at in the draft?
There's a lot of variables that determine that, and his level of readiness, his growth and development, physically, mentally, how he processes the experiences of year one. I'm open and expect him to be on another level like I do all guys, but I don't know that I see it with great clarity as I sit here today. It's still too many moving pieces. What are the major components of the talent acquisition that remains to be done throughout this offseason, be it the draft or remaining free agency and things of that nature. But make no mistake, he showed some things, particularly over the latter part of last year, and it's reasonable to expect him to build upon that. And so I'm open to it. But no definitive structure to it as we sit here today.
Omar, have you gathered enough depth at any position to where maybe you don't longer look at the draft, maybe like a guard or inside of the offensive line or middle linebacker?
I think any opportunity we have to add competition, regardless of position, we're going to look at it. And if it helps us, it helps us. So competitions, I've said it from the very beginning, that my job is to bring as much competition to every position possible. And if drafting a certain player allows that, and he's somebody we targeted, we'll go after it.
Omar, in terms of what you've been able to glean so far in the pre-draft process about corners and tackles, have you been able to see a significant difference in either top-end talent, those two positions, or depth at those two positions?
Two good positions that are available in the draft, but overall, this is really a good draft. Like, I think when you look at the talent, just position by position, Coach and I have talked a lot about this. It's a good draft, and it feels really good. And we feel like we're going to be in position to draft, some good players. And the way I always, the phrase I always use, it's, I don't really use drafting at a need. It's always at a priority need position. I think we're going to have the ability to address those needs.
Mike, then to follow up on Omar's point, from a coaching perspective, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the notion of maybe using some of the collateral that you have to move up to get a real home run in the first top 10? Or like to have that, if it is a deep draft, to have that many different components you can build into your roster? What's a preference from your point of view?
You give me a specific player or an opportunity, and I'll probably have a more definitive answer. We're not opposed to moving up in an effort to pinpoint someone that might be special, but we do truly believe that there's great depth in this draft. And so we're ready and comfortable for whatever. And I'll be really specific why we feel this is a deep draft. I think it's another byproduct of COVID. There's some veteran guys in this draft. I mean, there's guys with 6 years of college football playing experience and 5 years of college football playing experience, and I just think that that's one of the reasons why it is so deep. It's just another byproduct of COVID.
Either one of you, a lot gets made about the 30 visits, probably because there's a finite number of them. How do you guys weigh who you bring in here to the facility versus going on the road and meeting them or Zoom calls or whatever?
It's a variety of things that determine that. Sometimes we're trying to gather medical information. Sometimes we're trying to spend another intellectual football day with them. Maybe we didn't get any exposure to them because they were non-combine or non-senior bowl, or we didn't go to their universities. And so there's several reasons why a guy could fall into that 30 visit list, and those are some examples of why. Medical or football get to know, a lack of exposure because they weren't invited to something or things of that nature.
Omar, do you expect an early run on cornerbacks, and is that reflective of the quality of that position?
It's a good question, Jerry. You just never know. You just never know. I would assume so. It is a deep position, so I think we're prepared if that happens.
Mike, how much closer are we getting to positionless football, especially on defense?
I go the other way. As opposed to calling it positionless, I think there's just more specialization. Positions that we didn't necessarily identify as positions years ago are very specific roles. I think the nickel, the interior corner, is a position in today's game. The dime linebacker or the passing situations linebacker, for example, is a really specific position in today's game. There's interior rushers. Those guys oftentimes play on the edge on rundowns. It's a highly specialized game today. And so in one vein, I think you can call it positionless. I think you can go the other direction and say it's very specialized. I know what you mean. It's a discussion, certainly.
Like your wide receiver, a lot of the guys that you had in the slot were smaller guys. Was part of getting Robinson a bigger guy, and it seemed like about 2/3 of his snaps with the Rams were outside. Do you see him as more of an inside guy?
He's had experience as an inside guy. He's got physicality in his game. He can drop his weight for big. He is an example of our general free agent interest. It goes all the way back to when he was at Penn State. Kevin Colbert and I spent a great deal of time with he and his family through his draft process. He was a diaper dandy. He was a 20-year-old when he came into the draft. We held him in high regard. We liked his football character. We liked his talents. We liked his upside. We followed him throughout his NFL journey, and the interest still remains. And those are generally the stories. That's the framing of the people that we generally do free agent business with. Same thing could be said for E. Roberts. I remember being down at Houston when we were at his pro day, and Kevin and I stood in the parking lot and talked to him, he and his parents, for maybe 45 minutes after his pro day was over. That's how we play free agency. We build our team primarily through the draft because we do a great deal of research and work regarding these guys in draft prep. And so, our professional interest is usually a continuation of that.
Kenny Pickett, year 2, is that a media myth in terms of having a rookie salary quarterback and teams being able to really go after other positions and stockpile a team accordingly to the salary cap, or is that's the real substance of that?
I would just say, obviously, I mean, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure it out. When you have a rookie quarterback that's starting for you, it gives you options. That's the way I always say it. You have options to do different things and maybe get creative on some other things.
Like you talked about how the pandemic and how some of these college players have been playing for 4, 5, 6 years. Some of them are now in this pre-draft process. Throughout your interviewing process, whether it be the top 30s or the Zooms, have you noticed a more preparedness because they're a little older and experienced?
I think you notice it, but I also just think you just look at the general age of the guys. Whenever we put a guy's profile up, you got basic measurable information, height, weight, speed, 40 times, et cetera, and the date of birth is a component of it. And I'd imagine the average date of birth for this draft class is significantly higher than maybe the previous years, and there's a specific reason why, the global pandemic.
Mike, you obviously have known Omar for a while, but what did you learn about him from spending so much time during the pre-draft process on visits and stuff, and what do you think you've learned about what it'll take to be successful collaborating in the draft room?
I don't know that I've learned anything new. It's just an opportunity for us to live out the things that we already know we value about one another, about the team building process, about what this organization needs from us. We enjoyed our time traveling. There's business to get done, but aside from that business, man, there's many nights just sitting in the lobby having a cup of coffee, just continuing to hash over the vision, the mode of operation. You can't have enough of those discussions to further solidify why it is we do what it is that we do and how we go about it and our roles in it and how we work together, the fluidity of it. And so that's been fun. It's been fun. You can't shortcut it. I think that's why it's been fun. We respect it, and so we hadn't tried to cut corners. The secret is there's no secret, man. We had to pack a bag and spend some time together and beat the bushes, and it was a good process.
Omar, process-wise, have you guys done anything different in terms of preparing for draft scenarios or how you evaluate prospects than when Kevin was in your seat? And I guess going along with that, how much has Andy played a role too in all that in his new position?
I would say overall, I've said this before, it's been really a similar process. I'd say it's probably 85% very similar to how we've done it in the past. I learned it from Kevin and have a lot of respect for how we've always done it. Now, having said that, brought in Andy and Dan Colbert and Mark Sadowski and Sheldon White, and they've had some really cool ideas and things that they've done elsewhere that they've suggested to us, and we've implemented some. Some I've said yes, some I've said no, but overall it's similar.
So Omar, you don't do the mocks anymore, correct? Pre-draft,
We do strategy meetings where we discuss what we're going to do if X, Y, and Z happens. I mean, that's. Yeah.
Rank the top players? I mean, I only said it because I believe that's how Kevin said they did the last couple of years, Mike, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's just part of the strategy. I mean, we go through scenarios.
That was awesome. That was awesome.
We have strategy meetings where we go through different scenarios and how we would take players if they're there and all that. So, yeah. So, because there's, along what you just said, there's some.
I think a cool thing is we haven't been running away from the differences of transition. We've been open to it. Just like I was talking a year ago, we were transitioning at quarterback and the uneasiness, the feeling that could be positive fuel for us. We're going through a transition here in a significant role, and we'd be remiss if we didn't have urgency about it and also just be open to the differences that could help us improve. And I've been excited about working with some of the new guys and some of the guys that aren't new but are in a new role, and just been open to doing things differently. I think particularly guys like us that have been in roles or been in this organization an extended period of time, it's a natural inclination to get resistant to new thoughts and ideas and approaches, and that's something that you can fall into, and that's something that we've been consciously resisting. because we might miss an opportunity for improvement or get better. And that's something that comes with transition too.
Along those lines, how much fun is it for you the last couple of years with all the transition? Not that you need rejuvenating, but does it give you more juice to have this new challenge?
I'm always having fun. I love what we do. But the variables that you mentioned have been probably some of the reasons why, but I can't tell you that there's a time that I could point to where I'm not having fun, whether it's in a 12-month calendar or over the totality of my time spent here. I just love the challenges that this business presents.
You said corner was an area where there's depth. What other positions do you feel there's good depth in this draft?
I mentioned overall it's really good, but you get excited about the D line group's good, the O line group is good, the corner group is good, the outside backer group is good. Some good quarterbacks. We're not taking a quarterback, but you asked.
The tight end
the
group.
tight end group is good. The receiver group is good. We just feel really good about the talent, really at every position.
Omar, can you confirm that it was coffee that you guys shared?
It was coffee.
And what was it? Excuse me. What was it like for you though? This first time going through this, you learn anything? Going through the pro days and all that traveling and everything that maybe you didn't know going into this?
Yeah, you try to learn something every day, new experiences, talking to new people. It's a lot easier to get a hold of Nick Saban to meet one-on-one when you're in this role as opposed to my other role, things like that, conversations like that. But you learn something every day. But Coach used the word fun earlier, and it's truly been that's right, the right word. It's been a lot of work. We think we've been very diligent. The process has been tremendous, but at the end of the day, it's just been fun.
You mentioned at the outset that you did whatever you could in the free agency process to properly gird yourself so you weren't painted into a corner to have to reach for a given position. With Kenny going into year 2, do you feel similarly, maybe more broad strokes, about the offense overall, where if the best players tend to come on the defensive side of the ball, you're comfortable addressing that side of the ball? Do you have enough there on offense to have the playbook flourish? And grow?
Certainly.
Mike, if there's a player with a character concern or some other kind of red flag, how do you go about evaluating that, and how do you impact that in the end result? Will you take a player off your board entirely? Will you just move them down? How does that work for you guys?
When there's character questions, we simply do the work, and doing the work is boots on the ground, relationships in their town, and getting information about their day-to-day from people in those environments. It's about interviewing them and talking to them about their past and what they learned and the steps they've taken in an effort to improve. It's professional research, private investigation. We utilize all the tools at our disposal to gain enough information to make an appropriate position on subjects such as that. And at the end of the day, we make a Steeler decision and we go with it. What the tipping point is in terms of taking someone off the board or leaving someone on the board, those are not black and white discussions. Those are handled on an individual basis based on the information that we gather and the amount of that information.
One guy in this draft you probably don't have to do much research on is Joey Porter Jr. Is it challenging at all or fun to evaluate someone like that who you know so well and you guys have grown up?
There's guys in every draft, particularly for me in recent years, that I have similar background with. Maybe they're Pittsburgh guys, maybe they're in a similar age group as my sons. The Sky Moore discussion a year ago, D. Ham and the guys that play next door, all the 4-1-2s, because I've been a part of this community so long, I've essentially watched those generation of guys grow up. I've seen them play Little League football. I've seen them play high school football. I've probably met them at some point during their development because guys like me meet talented young athletes. And so it's not as unique as you would like to make it. I'm sure you are going to make it. But, man, there's a handful of those guys for a variety of reasons, particularly in recent years, as I mentioned, that kind of make that less relevant and less significant story from my perspective.
Has your son been a resource this year?
Man, I don't get any any information from my son, particularly professional information.
You've been in contact with all 31 teams about trade on, or are there some of you?
I'll say this. Before Thursday, we will have been in contact with all 31 teams. I wouldn't say we're there just yet.
I think that's what's exciting about, you mentioned 32. Being in that position, we're acknowledging that we're not quarterback shopping, and that position might be one that attracts quarterback shoppers, and so it's exciting to see what might transpire with some of those phone calls and the value that we might be able to get. It is a unique position for us to be in, and we are very excited about it.
How spontaneous is draft night? Just say that 17th pick comes up. I mean, do you talk to basically every team prior to that? Is there ever, I guess, a last-minute team that does actually call?
I think preparedness makes that less spontaneous. I think that 32nd position is something that's new to us, and that's something that probably is going to have more of our attention in terms of the spontaneity of it or the uniqueness of it. It's just due diligence in terms of preparing for the myriad of things that could happen at 17, whether we stay there, move up, move back. That's everyday business for us, or every year business for us.
So, hypothetically, so if you had something worked out, you're probably going to have it worked out a few picks before then, or even?
Could be, or it could happen in the moment. That's just experience tells us to be ready for all of those scenarios that you outlined.
Couple more?
Even informally, or you know, if at all, is Kevin, you guys communicate with him? Is he involved? Has he been involved at all this process?
I talked to Kevin. Kevin's always available to me whenever I need to call him.
Kevin's a granddad, man. Like he's talking about granddad things, man. We're seeking wise counsel, and he's laughing. He's wishing us good luck.
Omar, you said you looked at some things and said yes or no to specific things from Andy, but overall, how much of a resource has he been during this process for you guys?
He's been great. You know, I've known Andy for over 20 years, so we know a lot about each other. We know how we think. So, but he's been great. It's been smooth.
I tell you, the interesting thing about him, from my perspective, is, you know, my relationship with him is a new one, but he's not new to this organization or new to the values of this organization, and so that's been cool to get to know and see the foundational component of that in him.
Omar, how do you describe what this week is like for you personally and the feelings that kind of come along with it?
Personally, I'd say it's obviously exciting. It's a dream come true for me to be in this position. Been dreaming about it for a long time, but I feel ready. You know, I wish the draft was. I wish I was leaving here to just get ready to go make our picks. But exciting, and I think we're ready.
Andy and I have been laughing at him, and he's been talking extremely fast.
Miller and Austin, how are they coming along health-wise?
No updates regarding the health of guys. I don't have a detailed one, so I'm not going to mislead you with false information. We've been focused on talent acquisition, and the guys have been going through the conditioning component of it, and hadn't had a significant update in that regard. We get on the other side of the draft and we start teeing this group up for on-field work. It probably gets to be more of a relevant discussion at that time.
With the Zooms and everything you've added to this, do you have a ballpark on just how many prospects you've actually physically had a conversation with one-on-one?
We have turned some stones over.
Yeah,
I'll tell you that. We probably need to do that, but I'm telling you, we've touched more guys in this process than any process that I've been a part of, but it's not anything unusual that we're doing. It's just, again, it's utilizing the COVID-related tools coupled with the normal back-to-business approaches that we've had, and it's just providing a broader net for us.